When I refused to pay my brother's drug debts, my parents threw my son out in a blizzard to teach me about family. So I called my lawyer, subpoenaed their finances, and watched them lose everything. My name is Ryan, and before I tell you what my parents did to my 8-year-old son, I need you to understand one thing clearly. I gave them every chance to stop. They chose not to. So when the judge read that verdict and my mother collapsed in the courtroom screaming my name, I didn't flinch. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. Because people who weaponize children don't deserve your tears, they deserve consequences. And that's exactly what they got. It started on a Thursday night in February when my younger brother Cole showed up at my door looking like he hadn't slept in a week. I hadn't seen him in 4 months, which honestly had been the most peaceful 4 months of my adult life. "Ryan, I'm in trouble," he said, pushing past me into my hallway without being invited. I didn't even close the door all the way. "How much?" He looked at the floor. $28,000, I laughed, not because it was funny, because what else do you do, Cole? You're 34 years old. I know, this is the 3rd time, I know. Last time mom and dad remortgaged their house for you. The time before that they wiped out their savings. I know, Ryan, but these people, they're not patient, they're not going to wait. They've already shown up at my apartment twice and I'm scared and I just need— "No," I said simply. He blinked. "You didn't even let me finish. You were going to ask me for $28,000. The answer is no. It was no before you walked in and it's no now." His face shifted. The scared younger brother disappeared. Something uglier took his place. "You have the money. You and Sarah both work. You have that house, the cars, we have a mortgage, a son in therapy, college savings, and a retirement fund we've been building for 15 years. None of that exists to clean up your addiction. It's not an addiction, it's— Goodbye, Cole." He left, didn't slam the door, just walked out quietly, which somehow felt worse. I should have known that quiet meant he was already making a phone call. My father called at 7 a.m. the next morning. "Your brother came to us last night. He's terrified, Ryan." "Good morning to you too, Dad. This isn't funny. These people he owes money to, they're dangerous." "I know." That's why he should have thought about that before the first time, the second time, or the 3rd time he got himself into this situation. Long pause. "We need you to help him." I already said no. Ryan, his voice dropped into that tone. The one he'd used my entire childhood to signal that the conversation was over, and I was simply expected to comply. "This is family. Family doesn't mean I fund someone's self-destruction indefinitely. He could get hurt. He could also go to rehab, get a real job, and take responsibility for his own life. Those options exist too." My father was quiet for a moment, then— "I'm disappointed in you, son." "I know," I said. "I've heard that before." I hung up. My mother called 6 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was 4 minutes long, mostly crying, ending with, "I just hope that when your son needs you someday, you show more compassion than you're showing us right now." I saved that voicemail. I didn't know why at the time. I know why now. They didn't speak to me for 10 days. My son Noah kept asking why grandma hadn't called. He was close with my parents. Weekends at their house, fishing with my dad, baking with my mom. He loved them completely the way only a child can love someone, with zero conditions and zero awareness of who they actually are. I didn't know what to tell him, so I said grandma and grandpa were busy. Then my mother called on a Tuesday afternoon, voice warm and completely normal, like none of it had happened. "Ryan, sweetheart, I was thinking, why don't we take Noah this weekend? We haven't seen him in so long. We could take him to that science museum he loves." I should have said no. I've replayed that moment 10,000 times since. I should have trusted the feeling in my stomach that said something was wrong, but I was tired of the tension. I wanted to believe we were moving past it, and Noah's face when I told him lit up so completely that I pushed the feeling down. "That sounds nice," I said. "Sarah and I could use a weekend." "Perfect, we'll pick him up Saturday morning." Here's what I didn't know. My parents checked the weather forecast for that weekend. They saw the blizzard warning. The one that predicted 8 inches of snow and temperatures dropping to 4 degrees. And they planned around it. I know that now because of what their own security cameras recorded. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to understand what I woke up to that Sunday morning, because nothing I tell you next will feel real. But I promise you, every single word of it is. My phone started ringing at 6:14 a.m. I grabbed it half asleep expecting an emergency, some accident, something medical. It was my mother, and she was screaming, not upset, not panicked. Screaming, "You need to come get your son right now. We cannot handle this. He won't stop. He's been crying all night. Just come get him." I was already out of bed. "What happened? Is he hurt?" "Mom, what?" She hung up. Sarah and I drove 40 minutes and 23 minutes. I don't remember most of that drive. I just remember my hands on the wheel and my heart doing something I don't have a word for. We pulled into their driveway and I was out of the car before it fully stopped. Noah was on the couch when I walked in, wrapped in every blanket they owned. His lips had a pale bluish tint that made my vision go white at the edges. His hair was still damp. His hands were shaking even under the blankets. When he saw me, he didn't run to me. He couldn't. He just started crying in that terrible silent way children cry, when they've already been crying for so long that nothing comes out anymore. I crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled him into my arms. "Dad," he whispered, "they put me outside, I was so cold." I kept knocking and they wouldn't open the door. The room went completely silent. I turned slowly. My father was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed. My mother was beside him and her expression wasn't guilty, it was defiant. "He's fine," she said. "It was a few minutes, we were trying to make a point." "What point?" I said. My voice didn't sound like my voice. "That sacrifice is real," my father said. "That family requires something from all of us. You want to leave your brother out in the cold? We thought you should understand what that actually feels like." I stared at my father, a man I had known my entire life. A man who had taught me to ride a bike and helped me move into my first apartment and cried at my wedding. "You put my 8-year-old son outside in a blizzard," I said, "to make a point about Cole's drug debt." "It wasn't a blizzard, it was, Sarah," I said quietly. "Call the police." My mother's composure cracked instantly. "Ryan, do not be dramatic, he is perfectly." "How long?" I asked Noah gently still. Holding him, he looked up at me. His eyes were swollen, almost shut from crying. "I don't know, Daddy, a really long time." I kept knocking and calling for them and nobody came. I couldn't feel my fingers. I looked at my father. He had the audacity to look away. 30 minutes, my mother said briskly, like she was reporting a weather update. 30 minutes in light snow. "Children are more resilient than you. The temperature outside right now is 6 degrees, Sarah said from behind me, phone already at her ear. "Yes, hello, I need to report child endangerment." My parents erupted. I didn't hear most of it. I was wrapping Noah tighter, checking his fingers, his ears, his face. His skin was ice cold. His fingernails had gone slightly blue. I held my son and I let my wife call the police, and I made a decision in that moment so quietly and so completely that it didn't even feel like a decision. It felt like a door closing. The officers arrived in 11 minutes. My parents performed beautifully for them at first. Concerned grandparents, reasonable people. A misunderstanding blown out of proportion by an overreacting son. But Noah told them everything. He was 8 years old and he sat on that couch wrapped in blankets, and he told 2 police officers exactly what happened in the clear, unvarnished way that children tell the truth when nobody has told them yet to protect the adults. Grandma opened the back door and told me to go outside for a minute. When I tried to come back in, the door was locked. I knocked for a really long time. I could see them through the window. Grandpa looked at me and then he looked away. One of the officers took me to the side of the room. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" "Yes," I said, "and I want everything documented. Every single detail." My mother started crying, real crying this time, not the performance kind. "Ryan, please, we made a mistake. We weren't thinking clearly, we just wanted you to understand. Document that too," I told the officer. Noah was seen by our pediatrician the next morning, mild hypothermia. No permanent physical damage. But the doctor noted significant emotional distress, new onset anxiety, and recommended immediate trauma therapy. I had her put every word of that in writing. Monday afternoon, I called my lawyer, a man named Gerald who had handled my business incorporation, and who I knew did not mess around with anything. "Ryan," he said after I explained everything, "what they did is criminal. Child endangerment, potentially aggravated given the weather conditions and the duration. But if you want to maximize the impact, we go civil as well. Emotional distress, psychological damage, ongoing therapy costs. And I want that security footage. They have cameras all over that house. Then we subpoena them. And if they claim the footage doesn't exist and the security company says otherwise, that's obstruction. Judges don't like that." "Do it," I said, "all of it." Gerald was quiet for a moment. "Ryan, are you sure these are your parents?" "My parents put my son outside in 6-degree weather for 30 minutes to win an argument about my brother's drug debt. Yes, I'm sure." "Okay," he said. "Let's get to work." My parents tried to claim the cameras had malfunctioned. Their security company told the court otherwise. When I watched that footage, I had to leave the room twice. You could see Noah go outside, confused, looking back at the door. You could see the snow picking up around him. You could see him try the door handle, then knock, then pound, then press his small face against the glass calling for someone. You could see my father at the kitchen table looking directly at him. You could see my mother reach across and place her hand on my father's arm when he started to get up. She held him back for 31 minutes. She actively, physically prevented my father from opening the door to his own grandson. Gerald called me after he reviewed it. "Ryan, this footage alone wins the case. But I found something else. I sat down. I pulled their financial records through Discovery. Your parents have been borrowing money from family members for the past 3 years. Various reasons given: medical expenses, home repairs, emergency costs, but the actual destination of almost all of it, I already knew. Coal. $81,000 over 3 years. Funneled to your brother or used to pay off his debts. And that's not all. They took out a second mortgage 8 months ago, $45,000. They're already 4 months behind on payments. Ryan, they're 6 weeks from foreclosure. I sat with that for a moment. How much are we suing for? With therapy costs, medical bills, emotional distress, punitive damages given the intentional nature of the act, I'm going for $300,000. And I think we get it. Word got out the way it always does in families. My Aunt Carol, my dad's older sister, called me 2 days later. Ryan, I heard what happened to Noah. Send me that footage. Why? Because your parents borrowed $15,000 from me last year, told me it was for your father's heart procedure. I never saw a single medical bill. If they're about to be in court, I want answers. Turned out my parents owed money to 9 different family members. Aunt Carol, my Uncle Pete, 3 cousins. People who had skipped vacations, dipped into savings, gone without, all because my parents had spun them convincing stories about emergencies that never existed. Every dollar had gone to coal. Within a week, 7 of them had contacted lawyers. My parents were drowning before the civil trial even began. My father called me the night before the hearing. He sounded like a man who had aged 15 years in 3 weeks. Ryan, please, whatever you think of us, whatever we did, your mother is not well. She's not sleeping. She's barely eating. I'm asking you as your father to consider dropping this. You watched your grandson pound on a glass door in a blizzard, I said. You sat at a kitchen table and watched it. I don't have anything else to say to you. We were wrong. I know we were wrong. Yes, you were, and now there are consequences. That's how the world works, Dad. I thought you were trying to teach Noah that lesson. Turns out it applies to everyone. I hung up. Cole called me an hour later. Bro, you have to stop this. They're going to lose the house. They're going to lose everything. I know. Ryan, come on, they're our parents. They're your parents, I said. They've spent 30 years proving that. I was the responsible one who got guilt-tripped into feeling bad for maintaining basic boundaries. Noah was the leverage they used when guilt-tripping didn't work. So no, Cole. I'm not stopping anything. Silence. I'm entering a treatment program, he said quietly. I start next week. I just wanted you to know. That's good, I said. That's genuinely the best news I've heard in a long time. But it doesn't change anything with Mom and Dad. What they did to Noah doesn't get canceled out because you finally decided to get help. I know, he said. I just wanted you to know. The hearing lasted 1 day. The judge watched the footage in full. She read Noah's medical report, his therapist's evaluation, the pediatrician's documentation. She listened to my parents' lawyer describe a family misunderstanding rooted in frustration and poor judgment. Then she looked at my parents over her glasses for a long moment before she spoke. I've been on this bench for 19 years. I've seen parents make mistakes. I've seen grandparents overstep. What I watched on that footage is neither of those things. What I watched was a deliberate, premeditated decision to place a child in physical danger as a form of coercion. Mrs. Henderson, you are visibly on camera preventing your husband from opening that door. That is not a mistake, that is a choice. My mother opened her mouth. The judge continued without pausing. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. $300,000 in damages plus all ongoing therapeutic and medical costs for the minor child. I am also issuing a restraining order. The defendants are to have no contact with the minor child and may not come within 500 feet of him until he turns 18. At which point he may make that decision for himself. My mother made a sound I won't describe. My father stared straight ahead. Outside, Sarah took my hand. How do you feel? I thought about it honestly. Like it's over, I said. Just like it's over. My parents lost the house 3 weeks after the verdict. The second mortgage, the lawsuit, the family members coming after them simultaneously, there was no surviving it. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment 40 minutes away. I heard through my Aunt Carol that my father had taken a part-time job at a hardware store. That my mother had stopped answering most phone calls. That they were slowly, painfully beginning to pay people back $20 and $30 at a time. I didn't feel satisfied hearing that. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt the same thing I'd felt outside the courtroom, like a door had closed, quietly and permanently and with complete finality. Noah turned 9 2 months after the verdict. We had a birthday party at our house. His school friends came, loud and chaotic and wonderful. And he ran around the backyard with a water gun and ate too much cake and fell asleep in the car on the way home. That night I watched him sleep for a while. The way parents do sometimes for no reason except that you need to. He still had nightmares sometimes. His therapist said that was normal. That it would get better slowly and then faster, and one day he'd go a whole week without one. I believed her. Before I turned off his light, I noticed something on his desk. A drawing he'd made at school, a house with a big green yard, a man and a boy flying a kite. The man had a label in careful second-grade handwriting. Dad, I stood there in the doorway of my son's room for a long time. Then I turned off the light and went downstairs and sat with my wife and didn't say anything for a while. Some things don't need words. My parents have not contacted us. They know better. The restraining order makes it simple. Cole has been clean for 7 months. He got a job, a small apartment, a sponsor he calls every day. He texted me once just to say he was sorry, not for any specific thing, just sorry. I didn't respond. Maybe one day I will. Maybe I won't. Do I miss my parents? People ask me that. I think they expect me to say yes somewhere deep down underneath the anger. But the honest answer is I miss who I thought they were. I miss the parents I believed I had before I understood clearly who they actually chose to be. Those people don't exist, and I stopped grieving them a long time ago. Noah doesn't ask about his grandparents anymore. His therapist says that's healthy, that children are remarkably good at moving forward when the adults around them are stable and honest. I like to think we've been both. Last weekend we built a birdhouse in the backyard, Noah and I. It took 3 hours and looked nothing like the picture on the box, and he laughed so hard when it leaned sideways that he fell off his stool. Standing in the backyard watching him laugh, I thought about sacrifice, about what it really means. It doesn't mean destroying yourself for people who refuse to change. It doesn't mean letting your child pay the price for someone else's lesson. It means building something real even when it's hard, even when the people who were supposed to show you how never did. It means choosing every single day to be better than what you came from. The birdhouse leans a little to the left, but it stands. And so do we, so that's my story. Did I go too far or not far enough? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I read every single one.